Tom Cochran. Life is a Highway. Today's best music, 98.3 Fly FM. A Friday morning with Carl Richards and for Dan Mellon with Officer Nadine Lagar. Is there a certain? Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn your mic on. You see, it's already getting to the point where, you know, after
a few beers,
a few beverages, I can't function. I forgot to turn on your microphone. Now, some would say, well, that's a normal thing for me, but it really isn't. So, I'm already feeling the effects.
Absolutely.
Of what I've consumed. Now, we were just talking off air about. Now I have to try and get back to it, and your memory is probably better than mine at this point. Where, help me.
I don't
help
know which
me. You're like, which question do you want to ask? There were so many that we talked about off air, but the whole. I've only had
the ride programs?
2 beverages. You know, it was 2 hours ago, and I'm getting pulled over at a ride program. So what would the natural response be if I pulled up to a ride program 3 hours after consuming a couple of beverages? What would the correct response be if an officer asked me, had I had anything to drink tonight? Your
best bet is always honesty, so you should just say exactly that. 3 hours ago, I had 2 beers.
And generally, what would happen? You'd ask how many is 2.
How many is 2? What size of beers did you have?
Right.
The officer would form grounds or not form grounds, depending if there was evidence. And if he or she thought it was necessary, they'd make a breath demand.
Okay. So you'd make a breath demand at that point. And if I was okay,
if they thought you were not being truthful, and that you might have had more than that.
Okay.
But overall, it's always best to be honest.
And so this is where the point where, to be quite honest, the memory starts to go, the questions I had starting to go. So therefore, we know it's affecting me greatly. So probably the best thing to do is to take another reading, see where I'm at now.
Yep.
This is 4 beverages later, in a span of an hour and a half, pushing 2 hours, which is probably a decent night out.
That's a good night out.
Because there's probably a lot of people that will have maybe a couple of beverages beforehand,
and then
before they head out to the bar or whatever, and then have more there, and then think, I'm okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So let's. I don't know what we have to do here for another test here.
Just need to set it up. 1 second.
Need to set it up here. This, by the way. Let me see if I can spit this out. This is the Intoxilizer 5000C.
That's correct.
I said that all right?
You did.
I didn't stammer or stutter with that. Intoxilizer 5000C, Intoxilizer 5000C. All right, twice is enough for me. Deep breath, here we go. Have my eyes popped out of my head yet? I felt like I was getting a little lightheaded there. Now we're just getting the reading here.
So I have the reading.
All right. Now is this good or this bad?
Well, you can't drive.
I can't drive.
You can't drive.
I can stagger home, but I certainly shouldn't be operating a motor vehicle.
Right. You're almost 100. You're 0.98.
Almost 100?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So.
And I've had, in the hour and a half,
4.5. Yeah,
four and a half beverages.
Yeah. So you're way higher than the legal limit.
Okay, so if you were to pull somebody over with that in them, with that amount of alcohol in them, you would definitely make an arrest.
We wouldn't know you had that in you until you blew into the instrument. So if we pulled you over and thought we had the grounds for an impaired charge, then we would arrest you, and you would later blow that reading.
All right, and that would mean now just for clarification, what does that mean? What does that, if you blow that, what's the end result?
Well, when you're arrested for impaired, you have an automatic 90-day suspension, so your license is automatically suspended for 90 days. Depending on your readings, you may be charged with impaired driving, and as well as having over 80 milligrams of alcohol in your blood. and then you would go to some court proceedings after that. And you would likely, if it was your first offense, likely have a further suspension of at least a year and probably a pretty hefty fine. You'd be facing much stiffer charges much stiffer sentencing if it wasn't your first offense. So if you'd done this 2 or 3 times, you'd be looking at some very stiff fines, probably some probation and maybe even some jail time.
That's pretty severe for a night out of fun with friends.
It's certainly not worth it.
And the other thing too isn't there a device that you have to put in your vehicle too after?
Some judges order that people have an ignition interlock system, which means that you have to blow into it before your car will start. I guess that would depend on what you're charged with and how many times you've done it, or it really depends on an individual basis, and it's up to the judge to make that call.
All right. Officer Nadine Lagarde, there you go, words are slurring. There's a good sign right there. I thank you for joining me this morning, almost this afternoon. Thank you for joining me. The key message, anytime, but certainly heading into a long weekend, what would that be?
Do not drink and drive. Find a DD or get a ride from a taxi or anyone who hasn't been drinking.
All right. Thanks for joining me in studio. Be right back with Divine Brown, and Matthew Bissell has your 98.3 FLY-FM News update in moments.
This time